thank you for coming on today and talking to our followers. And it's so cool and exciting that we can talk to somebody from Northern Ireland. And I'll be honest with you, one of the reasons why I want you online, my wife wants to hear the accent. Right? She wants to hear the accent. So maybe, you gave me a great bio. Maybe you can just talk about yourself before we get into the question. What do you do? Why you do it? Where are you located in the world?
Sure. It's wonderful to be here joining you today on the show. Really excited. It's always fun to talk to people in other parts of the world that are doing amazing stuff when it comes to keeping children and young people safe online. And it's great to get that opportunity to collaborate. So I want to thank you first and foremost for that opportunity. Gosh, I've been involved in the online space now for coming up in 20 years. One of my early, and I mean early, claim to fame is that in the late 90s, I set up a very early social networking website. This is pre-Facebook, pre-Instagram, even pre-Bebo and MySpace. I mean, that's how long ago this was. And over a 3-year period, we built the platform to a user base of 83,000 registered users. So that was pretty big deal here in Ireland and also in the UK, because the platform wasn't just limited to Ireland. It was in fact a platform that was operational right across the UK. So that got me my sort of entry into the digital space. I was always very interested in technology from whenever I left high school. The internet was just starting to become a thing. And the fact that I could get online and send an email to somebody in North America blew my absolute mind. And then the next day I had a reply. So I was instantly hooked to this instant communication. And of course, as you know, Darren, back then it was AOL. You've got mail. I mean, that was the sound that I loved to wake up in the morning and hear. There was no such thing as spam emails in those days. It was like trickle of emails coming in. So that kind of got me hooked in the online space. And over a number of years through my early days of the social networking website, which was called outlastnight.com, I became more and more involved in that particular world. And I self-taught myself some basic programming skills. I learned some PHP. I got more involved in sort of building things online for a period of time. And then I sort of decided to, in about sort of the mid-2000s, to launch my own digital marketing agency, where I was basically helping other businesses develop their e-commerce capabilities, their digital marketing skills. And I was involved then in working with a number of global brands for a period of time, setting up their online infrastructure and their online platforms. In 2008, I went back to university to study a master's in communications. Again, very important in this role that you're an effective communicator, but I went back to study traditional communications, the history of communications, if you will. There was no digital at all in this course. And for a digital guy going back to study a traditional course, I was like a duck out of water, but it was fantastic. And it's helped me so much in my career to date. And that took me up to about, 2009. I went back into the world of employment then for a while. I was self-employed, I was employed. And then in 2015, I entered a competition in Ireland to become, they were looking for technology ideas that could help people.
Right.
And in and around that time, I had started to deliver workshops in schools. So as a parent myself, my children were at primary school and they were about 4 and 5 at the time. And a teacher approached me and they said, "You know a thing or two about the internet. What is Ask FM?" And I knew absolutely nothing about Ask FM at the time, I must confess. But I started to do a little bit of research and I wrote an ebook called How to Beat the Cyberbully, which kind of got a load of downloads. I think in a short period of time, it had got like 15,000 downloads. Right. It had been shared so many times online. I thought, you know what? There's a real interest here in people wanting to know more information about online safety. Why don't I do some research into it? I started to deliver some more workshops. I entered my competition then in 2015 called the Bank of Ireland Invent for a smartphone app that we had created around that time called Rep Selfie. And what Rep Selfie was a tool that you could download onto your phone, which would give you an online reputation score.
Yeah.
It would aggregate all of the content that you posted on social media. And it's a bit like a credit score.
Yeah.
If you get a high score, it meant that the app had found some things that you need to reflect on, because reflection is a key word I've always found with the internet and social media.
Yeah.
You know, you're a different person when you're 12, 13, and 14 than you are when you're 19, 20, and 21 and you're trying to get a job.
Yeah.
And right around that time, I had wrote a book called The Student's Guide to an Epic Online Reputation. And that was all about how to use the internet and social media positively and responsibly. And that was my approach. The internet is wonderful. It's such a great tool. There are so many positive opportunities. And here's how you can use it to get ahead in life. Yeah. And that was sort of my sort of entry into the world of online safety and online, reputation management, and also then into safeguarding.
You know, it's a couple things I want to say here. Number one, you and Brandon, who works with us, our son in our company, a lot in common. He's got his master's in communications as well, but because he's a millennial, a lot of it, he specialized in digital communications for sure. Number two, you know, when I'm teaching the kids, we presented to just over 490,000 now teens across Canada and the United States, and they call me a boomer, but I'm a drippin' boomer, is what they say. I'm a drippin' boomer. So you're now christened to be a drippin' boomer. After I heard what you just said there, you are now a drippin' boomer as well. So man, oh man, great history. And like you say, I'm so happy that we were able to connect. And the first time I became aware of you was on Twitter. And the reason why was because of your emoji that you had at the time. It was that wavy hair emoji. Remember that one that you used to have?
Well, I don't know if you've noticed, but it's kind of coming back a wee bit because all the barbers are closed. All the barbers are closed.
But I loved it. I just loved the way it was wavy and stuff. I thought, that's a good one. I like that one. And so I decided, I think this is a guy I want to follow. So I started following you, and the more I followed you, I went, you know, we have so much in common, right? And that's what's really cool about how social media can allow us to connect with one another around the world, which is really important given what's going on with current events. We'll talk more about that. But I got some questions I want to ask you. And we'll go through this, and we'll probably spider from those questions, and we'll have this really good interaction. But my first question to you is, you know, prior to this pandemic, there was a real movement to minimize screen time and gaming by some special interest groups because it was seen by many to promote isolation and emotional, psychological, physical, and socially less than desirable behavior. And isn't it ironic that now social media is actually being used to maintain social connections and mental wellness issues? In fact, you know, I don't know if you know Patrick Markey. He wrote the book Moral Combat, just a great book if you haven't read it. But he just tweeted this out a couple of days ago. Self-quarantining has made it clear that screens help prevent social isolation. They allow friends and coworkers and family to talk to each other. They have always done this. Contrary to fears of the past, screens are not destroying a generation, but today they're helping save one. Like, unbelievable what he just said there. So I just like to hear some of your thoughts, you know, because prior to this, there were so many people saying that, you know, social media is causing kids to become isolated, they're losing friends, and let's hear some of your thoughts.
Sure, and we do hear a lot of those sort of sentiments coming from people that, you know, screen time is making, you know, everybody, not just children and young people, more isolated. You know, people are becoming more insular. They're not sort of communicating the way they would have previously communicating. We're going to lose really important skills like communications and all of those sorts of things. My take on screen time is it's neither bad nor good, I guess. And whenever I think about it, I always think about, you know, it depends what the screen's been used for. It's a major thing for people to consider. And many people group everything in together. So if they see a game being played, or they see YouTube being used, or they see, you know, some other activity happening that involves a screen, smartphone, tablet, laptop, TV, you know, whatever it is, they assume that all of that time is negative. And that's completely nonsense. It's absolutely nonsense, and people need to realize that. And fundamentally, parents also need to realize that as well. You know, we cannot say that all screen time is bad. It's absolutely not. It depends on what the screen is being used for. Of course, if you sit there gaming for 8 hours a day, it's not going to be good for you, and we've seen that there is research out there to indicate that. However, there are skills certainly that you can develop while gaming. You can develop good analytical skills, you can develop good processing, lots of stuff. So it's about thinking about what the screen is being used for and how long it's being used for, and just ensuring that when it's being used appropriately and responsibly.
I love that comment. We've always said it's not how much time they're spending online, it's what they're doing with that time online. Are they just bubble gumming or just being consumers, which, sometimes it's okay from a stress release, kind of sit back and play. Or are they being producers and creators and change makers, which creates critical thinking? It's, I mean, in Canada, United States last year, there were 182,000 openings for coders in companies.
Yeah.
And companies in Canada couldn't fill those positions, so they were hiring people from other countries. MI6 in Great Britain has just announced that they're hiring people as young as 18 years of age now who can code. So again, I think you're right on target, is saying to parents, it's not about how much time they're spending online, it's about what are they doing with that time online that's really important.
And it's also about that opportunity that presents in itself for parents to sit down with the young people and explore that world as well and get an understanding for, how that young person is using the screen. But also, and I look at this from a parent myself, and, I look at whenever I see my children playing games or going online, and I spend a lot of time trying to encourage them to explore the screen, to use it to learn. Like two of my boys play musical instruments, and then they use YouTube to learn new techniques for playing the saxophone or the guitar, and they'll follow these people on YouTube and they'll watch these videos. And that's a positive use, because what they're doing is developing that musical ability even further through the screen. And that's important as well.
Absolutely, and those are some of the benefits. I mean, one of the biggest concerns I have, though, is, parental abdication on these issues is significant in my country and probably your country as well, where, I do a kids presentation. I was at a school where I had 1,300 students I was presenting to. We did a parents presentation that night, and there was 3 parents that showed up. Well, no wonder we have issues, right? And what a great opportunity now, given that we're all kind of physically distancing in our own homes, to have your kids and sit down with your kids and learn about this stuff, because the research shows us that parents that integrate with their kids and participate with their kids online, those kids are far less likely to get involved in less desirable behavior. In fact, parents, as a result of what's going on, parents can now use their kids as tech support. Right? When you think about it, right? Hey, Brandon, how do I do this? Right? Now your child can become tech support and show you how to use this stuff. But the biggest thing I've heard from kids, and it'll be interesting to hear from you as well, in my country, has said, you know what, Darren, we try to teach our parents about this stuff, but they have no patience. They have no patience. So if there's one thing I can share with parents is take the patience. Yeah, you may not want to sit down and play Fortnite with your kid, but do it, because you'll be amazed at the social capital you'll gain by doing that as a parent.
Absolutely. And, it's so on point what you're saying there. And sometimes I think it's not the young people that are a problem. It's the parents when it comes to screen time. They're spending excessive amounts of screen time on, like my mom, for example, is a classic example. And she doesn't mind me mentioning this because I've mentioned it before.
I love you, Mom, but
she spends a lot of time in front of a screen. Yeah. Now, if we look at that, we don't actually shine the spotlight in and go, but if we see a young person doing that, we say, oh, that's bad. Yeah. But from my mom's point of view, it gives her an opportunity to connect with people. She can keep in touch with family and friends right around the world. So I look at it objectively as well. And it is important to look at it objectively. And as you so rightly say, sit down, explore. There's so many things that you can learn off your children when it comes to how to use the technology. They are we're the dinosaurs, right? And I feel like sometimes I'm a dinosaur, but they are the digital natives.
Right, and you're absolutely right, but that goes against traditional parenting, where we parents know everything, right? We're not going to turn to our kids for guidance because we're the parents. Well, in this case, you're right on target. Is the kids, although they may have the experience, it doesn't mean they're digitally literate, right? That's where we parents can bring in our life experience about consequences to actions, and there can be a real integration integration with one another on those issues, right?
And do you know what's quite funny, actually? You've got Brandon behind the camera here today. I enlisted my son, Charlie, just before we did this stream today, and he was behind the camera when I was shooting a video, and he's only 12. So again, I'm introducing him into helping me with the production because I can't do everything myself, and he's coming up with some amazing ideas.
I say this in all my presentations. I say, you know what? Brandon was my digital Yoda. I was his digital Padawan. Right? He was the Jedi Master. I was his student. I mean, him and I fight back and forth now who the true Jedi Master is digitally. He's my digital master. He's my digital Yoda. I make no bones about it. And I think that more parents who think that way, those are the types of families I think that those kids will get themselves in far less than undesirable behavior online.
For sure.
Next question. How do you think preteens and teens can use the internet and social media to stay socially connected while they physically distance to help flatten that curve that we're all talking about surrounding COVID-19 right now?
For sure. There's no doubt that technology and social media has provided a huge opportunity. I think it would be a lot difficult today if we didn't have some of the technology that we have now that allows people to be connected. And when we have House Party, which has just exploded over the past couple of weeks. I mean, it's been around, since 2016 or whatever it's been around. It's been around a while, but it's exploded again. It's the number one app in the downloads right now, because young people are able to use that particular piece of technology, that smartphone app, to have group video chats and connect with each other. And also, I think what's great about that as well, young people are more aware of this social distancing now, and they're able to talk about that within these apps, within these communities, and say about the importance of distancing, using social distances in relation to flattening this curve. So there's no doubt that, when it comes to the different smartphone apps that are available, it's definitely been a huge advantage having the likes of House Party to enable children and young people to communicate and stay in touch with their friends, because that's important.
It is. And, I don't think, have we ever faced a situation like we're facing right now where we're all self-quarantined? Can you imagine what it would be like if we didn't have social media to stay socially connected? Although we're physically separating, we're using social media now to bring people together. Can you imagine what it would be like if we didn't have that right now? I mean, we would still get through it, but, one of the things that I've shared with we do a lot of work with individuals who have emotional, psychological, physical disabilities. And a lot of them have been saying, even prior to this pandemic hitting, how they were using social media to stay connected with one another, where they were almost using it as a crutch to kind of work through where they are and where they are in their lives, to stay socially connected with one another. And I really see that this is what is happening right now during this crisis. I believe that out of this crisis is becoming a watershed moment when it comes to social media. And there's going to be a lot of light shined on specific social media vendors to see if they step up to the plate, right? And doing their part and helping to police some of these things, some of the less than desirable things that we going on. But I do believe, and it is so cool watching how these teens right now and preteens are using social media to engage, to stay connected, and to do some really cool things online. We'll talk about House Party a little bit later, but what are some other things that you've seen your kids doing to stay connected with their friends?
Again, obviously, because the social isolation is a huge thing at the moment, I've seen, kids getting on board. What they've been doing is been creating content, and they've been creating content of things they've been doing in their home in order to keep themselves busy. Whether it's, my son put out a video today on him playing a tune on the guitar. I've seen other kids practice, ball kick-ups and down to see who could do the most of ball kick-ups, and they've been sharing this content online as well. And that's the type of stuff that's keeping them connected in their world. They're almost bouncing this stuff off each other, which is great to see.
What's kind of cool is we as a company, Brandon and Candace, who's our social media coordinator, every day we have something scheduled for those young preteens and teens that follow us. So we did one just the other day where it was charades. And because we have a green screen and we have a full studio, they were invited in. So they were actually playing charades with us. So our followers were in playing with us, and we were awarding points. So another way where they could stay engaged, right, online, doing some really cool things. Yeah. Awesome. So is your son in your room with you right now?
No, he's not actually. He's playing Fortnite. That's okay.
Yeah, no, that's funny. Next question. What are you doing as a social media safety and digital literacy advocate company, much like us, to stay involved in getting your important messages out there to others, right? Because right now, like it or not, a lot of our business with schools. We were going into schools almost every single day. We were traveling internationally, talking on these topics. Well, guess what? That's gone now because of what's going on. So what are you doing as a company? What can you recommend to other companies like ours to stay engaged?
Yeah, for sure. It's a great question because all of my work has been wiped out to September in terms of my physical appearances where I go to schools. And like you guys, I do a lot of schools right up and down the country here in Ireland and Northern Ireland, in in Republic of Ireland. I also do schools in the UK and Scotland and Wales. And then I travel out to the Middle East as well to do work over there. So all of that stuff now has stopped until we come through this period of COVID-19. I'm lucky, I suppose, a bit like you guys, is that we've become very comfortable in the use of the technology to keep our message alive. And I think that's really important that we keep the message alive. So what I've been doing over the past sort of 12 to 18 months, and it's kind of ironic, is that we've been kind of working on a learning and development platform, which enables me now to make all of my physical workshops that I deliver in a school available to parents through the smartphone app. So we've developed this tool called CoBabble, which is a learning and development platform, which enables me, but not just me, other people as well who want to use the platform. They can make their content available through a smart, clever app that we've created, which delivers that content into the parent's smartphone device. So instead of you having to come out, and you alluded to this earlier on, which is very interesting, and one of the big challenges that I had, putting aside the coronavirus, COVID-19, parking all that for the minute, one of the big challenges I would have is that a school would book me to deliver a workshop. It would be a Tuesday night in the middle of November. It would be cold. It would be 7:30 at night. And it would be advertised for a month before. There would be a school of 450 students. 3 parents would turn up,
Right.
and me.
Very
and
common, right?
Very common. And not just in Ireland, but in all parts of the world this happens. So
yeah.
The schools and the principals were saying to me, what can we do when to engage parents? And about 18 months ago, we embarked on this journey of creating this learning and development platform for that particular purpose. So my message is going to continue, I suspect, like your message, and we're going to be using those digital platforms in order to make that content available to parents, because we know the importance of keeping parents continually updated with this stuff. Never more than the time that we're currently in.
Yeah.
Will children, they're spending far more time online than ever before now. And it is important that we have that content available. Now it's even more important, in my opinion, than ever, because of the COVID-19, because of the social isolation and the social distancing. We're going to be spending more time on technology. As a company, we're just making sure that our resources are rolled out in a regular, timely manner through the smartphone app, so that people can get access to them in the comfort of their own home at a time that's convenient to them.
What's going to be interesting is for companies like yours and mine and others that are for profit, although we do things socially in our communities all the time, is, with families now really fearful of the fact that they are losing their jobs. So now how do they pay for their mortgages? How do they pay for their rents? How do they pay for their car loans, right? Like, how are families, gonna, because in order for companies like yours and mine to survive, we need income to a degree. And we as a company to this point in time, we're doing a lot of this for free right now, right? Because we've kind of positioned ourselves, we're able to do that. But those are some of the challenges that not just companies like ours or other companies around the world are going to have to kind of figure out. And, I give full credit to Brandon. I mean, he was the one who created the White Hatter Studio, right? He had the foresight 2 years ago to go, you know what, we need to be moving more to a video-based learning format where we're able to reach people who can't come and see us, or maybe parents who don't want to come and listen to us in a group, or more likely going to hear it by themselves in their homes and stuff. So, for the past 2 years, we've been messing around with some of the ideas, and I think I want to collaborate with you a little bit more on that we can talk, off camera later on to do some kind of really cool things like that. But I do think that these times are definitely going to cause us to think more asymmetrically as companies about how do we still get our important message out, but also allow us as a family and your family to survive in today's very economic trying times.
And I think that's where we need our collaboration. I think I'm a firm believer and a huge believer in collaboration because there are so many great things that you guys are doing. There's great content that you're producing. There's content that we're producing here in the UK and Ireland. There's content that Barry is producing in the Middle East. And by coming together and forming a more collaborative allegiance, an ecosystem is what I like to call it,
Yeah.
that, that benefits us all, that helps us all still continue to do the great work that we do, to pay our bills, to put food on the table, and really make a difference in the lives of children and young people. And that's where I feel there is huge potential because together, collectively, we've got some amazing skills and resources.
You're absolutely right. I mean, as a company, we surround ourselves with current, serving, and retired law enforcement. I'm one of those. We have IT specialists, we have programmers, we have online investigators, and then much like you, we all bring certain things to the table, strengths and weaknesses, and working collaboratively in what I like to call the online world, right? Like one of the things I say is that forget online and offline, right? Today it's just one world. In academia, they call it the on-life world, right? And I think we can create this on-life ecosystem where people like you and I, others, can come together to synergize, to think, to strategize how to get these types and share our message with everybody. I think that's a great idea.
For sure.
Next question. With the increased amount of disinformation and misinformation, including phishing attacks concerning COVID-19, what are some of the trusted resources that you recommend for teens and their parents to turn to?
Yeah, it's a great question, actually, because there's so much misinformation online. There is so much negativity online. There's so much clickbait content online, and every platform is a problem with this. It doesn't matter whether it's Facebook or Twitter or Instagram or any of these platforms for that matter. There's all sorts of information out there, and a lot of it is fake news. A lot of it is misinformation, and it's important for people to be aware of that. There's also the rising tide of cyber criminals starting to use the COVID-19 as an opportunity for them to defraud people, to scam people, and all of that is sort of melted in with all of this and blended in with everything. A lot of my work involves trying to educate people around the cyber crime aspect of the internet and technology. And in a previous life, I used to do a lot of mentalism and I used to do a lot of magic. So when I was younger, we would have did things like that. I was always fascinated with magic and mentalism. And I've brought all of that now into my school talk. So I'll do a number of sort of scenarios with young people where there'll be live simulations where I'll bring them up and we'll do an item of mentalism, or I'll take a smartphone device and we'll unlock it by just, doing some basic social engineering. It blows people's minds. That has really ramped up as a result of COVID-19 and what we're seeing online, because people are seeking out information and they're clicking on things and they're downloading things and they're signing up for things, and they're putting not only themselves but their families at risk as well. So what I always say to people is look for your trusted news source. If it's the White Hatter, when it comes to an online safety piece of content, go there because they have done the research. They're trusted. They've got the experience. So what I'm trying to get people to understand now is there's people like you and me and others around the world that are doing great research. They're creating amazing content that is trusted. When I see a tweet coming from you, I know it's genuine, it's trusted. I mean, let's take the house party example. I know, let's come back to that because I know we're going to talk about that. But when I see something coming from Julia in the eSafety office in Australia, or I see something coming from Barry and Beat the Cyberbully in the Middle East, or I see something come from Alan McKenzie, eSafety advisor in the UK, or
talking to him next week.
Trusted. Yeah. And it's all trusted stuff. So people have got to start realizing that they got to start following the people to give them the trusted news sources. If it's something that's coming from COVID-19, the World Health Organization, trusted resource. You've got your Department of Health in Canada or the UK or Ireland, trusted. You've got your local health authority, trusted. Be careful with a lot of the online outlets, the newspaper outlets that are just looking for the clickbait. I could name a load of them in the UK, but I'm not going to give them the airtime. And all they're doing is pushing out content and they're looking for clickbait. Be careful about the scammers creating the fake COVID-19 maps, the fake COVID-19 cures and hand sanitizer gels and all of that type of stuff. Trusted all the way.
You and I have a lot more in common. You said that you did mentalism. I'm a certified clinical hypnotherapist with a master's in neurolinguistic psychology,
I
right?
read
So
that somewhere.
it's kind of interesting, right? There's more similarities than what maybe we thought. But I couldn't agree with you more. I think the amount of clickbait out there, and especially for our seniors that are more going online right now, right? Because of the fear that is being generated. Some of them are now seeking remedies that they think are going to make them immune from this stuff. And that's where a lot of my concern, a lot of the kids are getting the clickbait and, look for multiple sources. But I'm more concerned about seniors, which is one of the largest cohorts that are going online right now that are coming across some of this stuff, right?
I worry about that, Brandon or Darren, because my mum is a senior citizen right now, and the amount of conversations, Darren, that we have had over the past 2 years about what she shouldn't be sharing on social media
Mm-hmm.
and what she shouldn't be clicking on, and she shares stuff that is it's not true. Is sometimes it's scam things that are happening, and she believes everything she sees because she's a trustworthy person.
Yeah.
And that's a real major concern. I think that's a piece of work that is not getting looked at the moment. I've often thought that maybe I should start producing some content for that demographic to help. I don't feel that it's getting looked at as much as it should be. I know that I focus a lot in on the children and young people, and I think that's a demographic that should certainly be getting some of our amazing
I agree.
information.
Brandon has actually he's done a couple of seniors presentations where he goes into long-term care facilities and stuff. We're actually messing around with the idea because we have so many teens that follow us where we call it the White Hatter Nation for the kids that follow us and stuff, where we're going to be, my thought is we can team teens up with seniors who want to reach out to them online for connection, but also those teens can now become those teen mentors in helping them. How do you use House Party? How do you use FaceTime? What is a text message? How does that work? I think it would be a real cool opportunity for seniors to connect with Gen Zs right now to help build that as well, right? Because I think there's a real missing need. And, to put this into perspective, I just saw in Scotland, there was a 90-year-old woman who died from COVID. And here's the reason why. She was going to go on a ventilator, and she said to the doctor in Scotland, you know what? I'm 90 years old. I've led a good life. You know what? Let that ventilator go to a young person. Like, oh my God, like I'm even tearing up right now. Like, she is a hero to me, an unselfish hero. And this is why, these young people need to understand that fact as well. And one of the ways to do that is, I think, to build a bridge between Gen Zs and the boomers, right? The old people, even my parents. And I think that there's a real opportunity to do that right around the country.
I think so.
Next question. Now that schools have closed and helped to help stop the spread of the COVID, many are turning to online education to keep their students involved as best they can. What are your thoughts on this, and what are some of the pitfalls that both educators and students need to be aware of?
Yeah, it's a great question, and I worry that we've rushed into a lot of this because we've had to rush into a lot of this, and there are a lot of platforms out there that may not be the best platforms for people to be using for a multitude of reasons. And I guess this is very sort of close to sort of the CoBabble platform that we've been working on for the past sort of 2 years, and in relation to try to make these things simple to use. Because this is what's going to put a lot of people off when it comes to a lot of the platforms that content now, even from a school environment, has been pushed through. They're not very user friendly. And we have to remember that a lot of parents who come along to my online safety workshop, some of them don't actually use the internet. They don't go online, believe it or not. I mean, I've had parents who come up and say, I don't use the internet. We don't go online. And now these parents are thrust into this world where they have no choice only to use Google Classroom or whatever else their school is telling them to use. So that's important there, that we don't forget that we make sure that those parents are getting the information in a digestible format for them. And there's some resource available to help them get up to speed when it comes to getting access to that online education that they need to be using. Also, it's important to be aware of the safety issues as well with some of these platforms as well, ensuring that you're not sharing personal information on them, ensuring that you've got your two-step verification turned on where possible, ensuring that if you receive emails claiming to be from the platform, that you always check out the legitimacy of that before you click on any information, or you update any payment information, or you update a password, just things like that that are so important. And those are some of the pitfalls that people can experience.
Yeah, we just put out an article that we wrote that we just put out this week to help educators and parents to make the online educational environment safer, right? But, you know, I'm a privacy hawk specifically to a lot of these things, and some of the concerns I'm seeing, you're right, I think a lot of teachers are being thrown into this out of necessity without really thinking deeper, which I totally understand and I get because of what's going on. But how is that going to have kicked us a little bit later? Like, I'm seeing teachers using platforms right now where they're actually taking screenshots of their students in the platform as they're teaching and posting them in their social media platforms, right? Like, privacy issues. I mean, it's cool what it is you're doing, but these are things that, and nothing against what they're doing because it's out of necessity, but these are things that may come back to haunt us later on for sure.
And if we think about a lot of these platforms that we're talking about, many of them are free. And if the platform is free, then you're the product. And that's important for people to remember as well. It's your data that's valuable. And that's why a lot of these platforms are created by large multinationals. And there's a huge potential for them to data mine that information beyond. I worry about the whole GDPR implications of all of this after COVID-19. I mean, people have not thought about that. And as you rightly say, there is content being shared there which is impacting people's privacy. And who knows where that information might end up in the future.
I mean, that's why we're using a product right now that we pay for. It's encrypted. Like, Brandon did his research 2 years ago looking at all these different platforms to help us pick one that we knew that was going to be safer, more secure, and really put a lot of emphasis on privacy. But again, I totally get the fact that in necessity where parents are going, we need our kids to be educated what's happening, but what are going to be the effects after that is going to be something that we're all going to be very interesting to follow for sure.
For sure.
Next question. I've been talking about the unequal access to the internet, and especially with families who face socioeconomic barriers and inequalities for several years now. And I believe this pandemic is shining an even brighter light on this challenge. How is your country dealing with this challenge, especially when it comes to schools who are using online education during this pandemic, knowing that there will be students who will not be able to access?
That's a challenge right now. And if we think about that, because there are still some homes that don't have great broadband. There are still some homes that don't have broadband. In fact, certain parts of where I live, there is no broadband. There is dial-up. And I mean, that's hard to believe in the world of 2020 that there's no physical, high-speed broadband. And those students are at a disadvantage. Those families are most certainly at a disadvantage. Technology also plays a huge role in this as well, where many homes maybe don't have a machine or a laptop that students can use. Libraries are closed now at the moment. You can't even go to your public library and use the computers there now because everything's shut down. So I think many families are going to find themselves at a real disadvantage at the moment. And I just seen a call out recently, actually, through my own community where people were asking for spare computers. Have you got a spare computer? And I've got stuff lying around the place, as I'm sure you do, technology that has went to the graveyard, but it's kind of still there, but you can power it up and somebody could get online. So we're starting to see a little bit of that happening now in our own community where people are starting to put call outs for computers and tablets and laptops and things that people might have sitting around the place that could help a disadvantaged family get online and help their children and young people get access to that content.
You know, we're lucky. Canada, we're one of the most connected countries in the world for broadband and stuff. Like, we're really blessed that way. Not everywhere, but most places across Canada. You know, the issues on the computers, it's great to take all these few computers that are in for free, but make sure those computers are wiped, because how do you know that the computer you're going to give a kid to go online doesn't have child porn or something on it as well, right? But another great idea that one of the school districts here in Canada was a great idea. They've now using their buses that have Wi-Fi connection, and they're driving them into communities that allow the communities now to connect with the bus as their basically their hub. It's so cool to see how people are thinking differently. You know, I actually wrote another article where I said, you know, if you have a family in your neighborhood who doesn't have internet connection, but you do, maybe open up a guest Wi-Fi on your network so that if they're close enough, they can connect to have access. One of our major cell phone companies here in British Columbia has just announced that they will be giving families who are from poor socioeconomic, who can't afford to get online, they're going to give it to them for free for a year, so that it encourages them to get online. But now the question is how do we get the tech to them to allow them to connect to that service, right? So yeah, go ahead.
No, and that's a great point you make about and I love that actually, the buses coming in and then opening up their hotspots and then allowing people to be able to connect with them. Because those buses aren't going anywhere right now, so that makes perfect sense.
Correct. Actually, what they're doing is they're putting food onto the bus. Because a lot of schools will feed the kids, so they're loading the food onto the buses. They'll drive out into the community, where the community will come with social separation to get their food, but at the same time, they can also connect online, right? Pretty cool.
I love that. I love that. And I seen a colleague of mine who's a nurse, and there's a big call out at the moment for the NHS, support the NHS. A lot of companies are giving food and coffee and all of this type of stuff, and it's really good. And she made a point today on social media. She says, look, I don't need any more free coffee. I don't need any more free food. Take that free coffee and free food and give it to somebody who needs it.
Yeah.
And I thought that was such a nice thing to say, because yes, whilst it's important to support the health service, of course it is, but there are so many families out there who are disadvantaged right now. Families are losing their jobs. Companies can't employ these people anymore. Bills can't be paid. So if we can then help those families, then that's a great thing to be doing.
Do your school buses have the ability to do Wi-Fi connection on those school buses? Do you know?
The public buses do. I know that for a fact. The public bus company here does have free Wi-Fi throughout it. And nobody's using them right now, so they could do that.
Hey, a gift from Canada, right? Just something to think about, to talk to your community. Maybe they might want to do that, right?
That's brilliant.
Next question. Lots of conferencing apps are hitting the market, and the most popular being downloaded for free. You mentioned it, House Party. And I know you did an online tutorial that everybody who's watching should go to and watch. It was a great tutorial that viewers can find on your site. But maybe you can share some of your thoughts on to those who are watching us now about that app, and what are some of the positives and what are some of the negatives surrounding House Party right now?
So it's been around for a while, as we talked about earlier on. It's been around since 2016. I remember writing a blog post on it in the very early days, before it was bought over by Epic Games, which, you know, of Fortnite fame. It's really popular right now. Number one in the App Store. It allows, you know, users to chat with between 2 and up to 8 people at a time in a group chat. And it's a great piece of technology. Look, I'm not going to say that it's not. What I will say is, obviously, like any social media platform, you have to remember it's free. You're the product, and always be mindful of that, and always be careful of anything you're uploading and you're sharing, etc. Over the past couple of days, and as I'm sure you've seen, there has been some allegations circulating on social media platforms that House Party has had a data breach, which the company, I want to say, has categorically denied. They have come out now with a bounty. I've just noticed actually over the past
$1 million.
$1 million. They want, and you know what? At the end of the day, there's reputational damage there, and you know, that company has a right to protect their reputation. So, and this is why it's important for people to be so careful before they write blog posts and they push things out and they make these, these allegations. Of course, if it's true, then you and me will investigate that, and we'll write an updated blog post, and we'll let our people know that this has happened. But right now, there's no evidence to say that it has. Yeah. So I had been contacted by a number of media outlets asking me for my opinion on this and would I give a comment on it. And I said, no, absolutely not, because I have no reason to believe that there has been a data breach. However, a couple of things that I will say, and I will say to people on our chat today, is always remember that when you're signing up to any of these platforms, it does not matter if you have the best platform in the world with the best security people sitting in your office. Somebody will always find a way to breach your systems. It happens all the time. And the problem we have is that, the problem we have is that people use the same password more than once. Yeah. So if you're foolish enough to use that same one password on every platform that you sign up to, it's not going to be too long before there's a data breach. Somebody gets the password and the email address, and guess what? They can log into most of your accounts. And, that happens. So my advice to people was, change your password, never use your password more than once. If you've got any concerns about a particular app, it could be House Party, it could be any other app for that matter, go in and change the password. I don't think at this stage that you need to be deleting the app. I think you need to, certainly if there's two-step verification in place on a platform, enable that. Change your password. Obviously, be careful about what you're posting and what you're sharing on the platform. If you wouldn't say it in public, don't post it in the platform. Screen recording can happen. Videos can be posted elsewhere around the web. All of that type of stuff that we've seen before. Be aware that within House Party, for example, strangers can come into a room and start conversations. And just be careful about disclosing any personal information that could be used against you in the future or indeed today.
Here's what I say, no matter what platform, no matter what app, no matter what your privacy settings, everything you do online is public, it's permanent, it's searchable, it's exploitable, it's copyable, it's shareable, and sometimes it's all for sale. And as long as you go in and think about those primary objectives right there, it just makes your experience a lot safer. Nothing can ever be 100% safe or hack-proof, like you say. I know that as an investigator, for sure. But there's definitely some things out there that are safer than others, for sure. But I also think it's so important that people read those terms of service that come with a lot of these apps that we're thinking about downloading and understanding what they're doing with that data as well, right? Unfortunately, the way that a lot of these terms of services are written, you need a law degree and a magnifying glass to read the micro print, right? But I do think that that is important.
And that's a challenge, and we do have to look at that. And we should be making these terms and conditions easy to understand. What you're signing up to, how your data is going to be used, how you can delete or close down or request your information to be removed. These types of things are so important. As you rightly say, information is being sold every day, all day long in some digital dark alley. Be careful, take steps to protect yourself. There's a lot more that people can do.
For sure. Next question. I do believe that this pandemic will be a watershed moment for social media vendors and how they police or don't police themselves. And I do believe that those who do their part during this world-changing event without profiteering will prosper as we begin to return to whatever normal is, or a new normal, whatever that will mean. What are your thoughts on that, Wayne?
Yeah, absolutely. I think it is a watershed moment. I think a lot of the platforms themselves are going to are going to have to be a little bit more accountable on what they're doing, to protect people, but also how they're, adding value in the current climate. I mean, I've been very lucky. I mean, a lot of the providers that I use have been proactive. They've reached out to me. Any of those platforms that I've had subscriptions for, Adobe is a good example. I use Adobe Creative Cloud. Credit where credit is due to Adobe Creative Cloud. They reached out. They said, you know what? You can pause your account for the next 3 months. Still use the service, but we're not going to bill you. Fantastic gesture, fantastic. And I think that's so good that they took that initiative. Now, since then, there have been other companies that did that. Some of them I've had to reach out and ask for it. Others have been very proactive as well. But I do think that, we're in a time right now that it is difficult economically across the world. It's difficult. It's challenging. It's challenging for me because I've had a lot of my own work wiped out from now to September. So I'm finding my time and using my time to give back to people. If a school wants me to do something virtually with a group of students or a group of parents, absolutely reach out, get in touch. I will do that for you in a heartbeat. And that's the sort of way that I'm trying to give back so that whenever we come through this at the other end, people will remember me and the things that I did. Equally, I'm also making a lot of my content, and we were going to move a lot of my content, Darren, into my paid app. We've placed a hold on that at the moment, because we know how difficult and how challenging it is. Because the problem I have is, and you're the same, it's a business. I have to be paying my operating costs. We got to be able to make a living. And we spend, just like you spend, a lot of time creating some really amazing content that is helpful. Look, you can't just knock out a blog post in 20 minutes. You got to research it. You got to write it. You got to optimize it. You can't just shoot a video in 30 seconds and pump it out there. You got to produce it. You got to edit it. You got to do all those things. So I'm trying to get people to understand that when it comes to online safety, yes, there is a lot of free content online. And yes, if you search around, you can find some really great stuff. But what I'm trying to do is save you all of that hassle. I'll do all the heavy work, just like you guys will do. And all we're asking is that we get an affordable rate for delivering that content to you that helps keep your children and young people safe. But all of what we're doing at the moment is placed on hold.
Yeah, you know what? It's all about paying it forward, right? And I think those companies that pay it forward as we come out of this pandemic, and we will, there's going to be some tough times ahead, there's no doubt about it. But as we come out of this pandemic, I think those companies who have paid it forward, I think will benefit from that in the end. I truly do believe in positive karma that way. So, last question. You know, a lot of our viewers who watch this are primarily teens and parents, but primarily teens. But what are your final thoughts specific to social media and safety and digital literacy while we navigate this changing world, this thing that's going on right now?
I think we live in
message?
I think we live in an amazing time right now. I think one of the huge things for people to be thinking about, particularly teenagers, is the opportunity that the technology now provides. I was at a disadvantage, I suppose. There was none of this stuff when I was growing up, effectively. You know, it was 16 before I really started to get my first introduction to technology, and it was the internet. I learned most of my software development skills on forums. You know, forums are a thing of the past now. Yes, there are some forums online and people still use them, but that's where I learned a lot of my basic programming skills. You can learn so much now from accessing content on YouTube. If you want to be a software developer, and in fact, I'm going through a course at the moment on Python programming, you know, learning the basics of Python. And I'm watching this YouTuber who's about 17, who's taking me through 10 videos on how to improve your Python skills, right? I'm using this time right now in social isolation and social distancing to develop my skills as a communicator, as a software developer, as an app developer, as an online safety expert. And I'm using that time. And I think that's something, we're not going to have this time again, Darren. It's really important to remember that. I think, you know, I say this to my kids as well. I say, look, see this time? You can play Fortnite all day long, but you could be using this time to learn those skills that you really want to pursue a career path in. You've got all of this information.
Yeah, and learning things that they're not teaching you in the school system, right? That are going to benefit you, because like it or not, school systems are locked. You know, they're basically cookie cutter approach to, you know, to education. Now you have the time to really look and learn about those things that really interest you, that maybe aren't covered in school, but are going to benefit you later on in life.
Absolutely. And I would be saying to your listeners that are listening to this episode, you know, set up your own YouTube channel, set up a website, start to showcase the amazing talents that you have and start to share that knowledge with other people and build your audience, because this is a great time to be doing that. And if you're 15 or 16 or 17, you don't know what future employer is going to see that. And it's going to be a showcase of all these amazing skills that you have that an organization might want to use. So I think it's really important to use this time wisely, use it to your advantage, look for ways to develop those all-important skills, and look to build something in the future that's going to bring some amazing benefits back for you once we come through this.
You nailed it. I mean, we teach a program called Leveraging Social Media for Education and Employment Opportunities, and there's no better way to start doing that than right now, right? Where you're going online, and rather than just consuming, you're producing. Kind of takes us back to where we first started. We're on the issue of screen time, right? Like, what a great opportunity now. Yeah, it's okay to consume, play Fortnite and games every so often, but why not take the majority of the time to become those producers where you're putting out that digital dossier that will separate you from others when all of a sudden job market's open and they're looking for people that you can now advertise yourself. Like, I'm the person, not that person over there. I know that's a sad thing to say, but that's a really good way you can leverage social media to your advantage. I couldn't agree with you more.
And create that positive digital footprint that's going to open up those opportunities for you. Look, 93% of recruiters admit to using social media to screen applicants. You know, it's huge right now. You can influence an employer before you've even submitted an application to that company. That's how powerful social media is. That's how powerful content is. And yes, I spend time on Facebook scrolling through news feeds and on Instagram. But at the back of my mind, I'm always looking for ways to use this to open up those amazing positive opportunities right across the world.
My followers, or our followers, know that because, you know, as a company, we also offer that as a service, right? Because of my background in law enforcement and my skills in open source intelligence, We have employers who will connect with us to do backgrounds on individuals to confirm that what they're actually saying on a paper resume or face-to-face in an interview actually matches what it is they were doing. Like in policing, I can't tell you how many times we were looking to hire somebody who looked good on paper, but when you looked at their digital dossiers, both in the light and deep web, didn't want to touch them with a 10-foot pole. And like it or not, we can say that's not fair, but that's the reality, right? That's the reality in today's world. So anything else you'd like to share with everybody? Again, what's your website again? What's your website?
Website is waynedenner.com. Really easy to find. I'm available across all of the social media platforms. If there's any parents that listen in, they can check it out on Facebook. I do a lot of content over there. A lot of content on, a lot of different topics. I mean, it's not just, the do's and don'ts of social media. Here are some positive things that people can think about using. Here's how to use LinkedIn more effectively to build your profile. People can check out the book, The Student's Guide to an Epic Online Reputation. There is a new version of the book hitting the bookstores, hopefully in the next couple of months. It should have been done by now. That's going to be out. But I love to connect with people. If I can help out any of your listeners in any way, please get them to reach out. What I would say as well, and one final point, is that whenever we embarked on our app journey about 20 months ago, I couldn't find any local software developers to do the app that I needed to build. We outsourced all of that work to another location in a different part of the world. And I know this, there are people watching your show right now that could build this app in a heartbeat. And they're the future software developers. So don't be afraid to reach out. There's opportunities that companies have right now if you can demonstrate that you can deliver those skills.
For sure. Wayne, I really want to appreciate that you took my invite and that you were willing to come on and share your thoughts and ideas. I think collaboration on these topics is so important in today's world, and sharing, because I don't want people just to think that my way is the only way, right? It's so important to get other thoughts and ideas. But the more I talk to people, the more I think about, we're basically saying the same thing. Principles stay the same, diverse in application, and the way we say it may be a little different, but that fits who we are. And I just love the fact that we can reach out together using social media to share some important messages. So on behalf of the White Hatter team, Wayne, I really like to thank you for accepting our invitation, for coming on, and let's stay in touch. Let's stay in touch.
Thank you so much, guys.
Oh, you're so very welcome. Everybody who's watching the show, next week, I'm going to be talking to another friend of mine from Great Britain, from in the UK, on these very issues as well. I'm going to be asking some different questions. My hope is to connect with people from around the world. Wayne's going to connect me with somebody from Dubai, where I'm going to be able to talk to them from their perspective, because I'm sure their perspective is totally different than my perspective here in my country, even Wayne, where he is in Ireland. And Wayne, you're from Northern Ireland, right?
Yeah, so I live right on the border. Any fans of Game of Thrones? I live right near where the Game of Thrones is filmed, actually. So I know a lot of those locations. So if you ever come across, Darren, I'm going to take you to see some of those locations. You know what? I think there's some bucket lists. I love Irish music. I just love it. In fact, I don't know if you know Ashley McIsaac. We were supposed to go to a concert here in Victoria, but it got canceled and stuff. But I'm going to make my way there one day. It's on my bucket list. Ireland, Australia is on my bucket list as well. So I'll make it there, and I'm going to take you up on that for sure. You are very welcome anytime. You have a great rest of the day, Wayne. Thank you. Bye now.